authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Back for the second segment of Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. If you just joined us out there in TV land, I'm your host, Kathy Boyd Fellure, and we have three wonderful authors for our guests today. And I'm going to pick up with Laine Atkinson here over on the left side of me, and he's going to share a little bit more about his first book and second. And I would love to hear a little music in there, too. That's okay.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but if you want to come to Clark's Corners on the 29th, we'll certainly oblige you.
And what time is that?
That's from 7 to 10.
And that's this Saturday?
That's this coming Saturday, yes. Should be a packed house.
Good. I would be there if it wasn't my little grandson's birthday.
Now you have your priorities.
Yeah, 4-year-olds, what can I say? Well, take it away, Laine.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, this is my first novel. I do enjoy history. I always have. And what I've done in this particular novel, I've basically written 3 stories in one. They're 3 different families, 3 different periods of time in history. One post-Civil War, one immediately following the turn of the century, and one modern family. And the premise is that the early historic family disappears in historic times, and the modern family is actually involved with researching and finding out what happened, and in the course of doing so they reunite that family, solve the mystery, find a treasure. And so there's a bit of paranormal, there's a love story. Actually, I've incorporated my wife and I's story into it as well, which was a lot of fun. So
the contemporary time that it takes place would be today?
The time frames range from 1862, during the Civil War in New Mexico. Actually, there was a battle in New Mexico called the Battle of Glorieta Pass, which they called the Gettysburg of the West.
Of the West,
and that's where the primary character from the earlier section comes from. A lot of actual history incorporated into that. A lot, since I'm from northeastern Oregon, the Middle family is involved with logging right after the turn of the century, and so there's a lot of historical information specific to the practices and basically the process, but also the hardships the folks followed. And the contemporary family is basically from about 2002 until 2005.
Okay. And can I ask how long your research took, just for this book?
I began this in 2010 and completed it in 2014, so a total of 4 years. However, the majority of it was written from January to March of 2014.
Okay, so the research took longer than the writing.
Much longer.
Detailed. Yeah, we're funny that way, huh?
Yeah.
Got to be right.
Yeah.
Got to have it right. So the touch of romance, can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, yeah, my wife and I met fairly late in our lives, and a lot of the things that are incorporated into the story are actually parts and pieces to what we experienced, and actually throughout the story I tried to incorporate that. A lot of the story is actually true. A lot of the storyline, if you will, are things that actually happened, either just exactly as they happened or a fictionalized version. Nevertheless, very true. One of the things I was sharing with Antoinette earlier is that I was caring for my wife's father at their home here in Jackson, and she was in the Bay Area working, and I had never had any kind of a paranormal experience before, and I frankly didn't believe in it. But as I was talking to her on the phone late one night, and her father had already gone to bed, someone walked across the archway in the living room. And I just stopped talking. She and my wife asked me, well, what's the matter? What happened? I said, someone just walked through the front room. She says, oh, you saw the miner. I said, what do you mean I saw the miner? And so I described, she actually described for me what I had just seen. And she described this entity, or this apparition, if you will, to a T, a fellow in kind of white canvas pants and a red flannel type shirt with no collar, long sleeves. And he just literally walked across the archway from one end to the other, and then just disappeared down the hallway. And so that was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. And she said, yeah, that her folks, while they lived there, had seen that many times.
Not normal for them.
It was very normal for
The
them.
same guy.
Yeah. And then one other thing that I incorporated into the book, I was actually a fair amount into the book when I decided that, or when I had an inspiration, if you will, to include another character. Well, a little background, I had attended a class reunion in 2010 and then talked to a lot of people I hadn't seen for over 40 years. And one of the ladies I talked to was an old classmate, and we didn't discuss anything in particular, just the normal things you do at a reunion. Well, later, after I came back home and was writing, I felt just compelled to include this new character in the book, and it was in the original family, the early historic family, and it was a child that was ultimately killed in an accident with a horse. And it was, as I was relating to Antoinette, it was just like I was watching a movie and I just almost couldn't keep up trying to write. And subsequent to that, in another conversation I had with the same woman about a year and a half later, she relayed to me that when she was in school, that she had actually gotten pregnant and given her child up for adoption. She was a senior in high school, and she had just found out right after the reunion that her child had been killed by a horse.
Interesting background.
So it's been quite an
was more
interesting
than you-
experience.
More than you anticipated
Yeah.
when you started.
Very much so.
Very much so. And that has led into the next darker book.
It has. If I might just read the prologue to the next
Oh,
book,
wonderful.
would introduce it that way.
That would be wonderful.
The book is entitled Wolf Trap. The man watched the video screen intently as the image of a line of 12 bound men walked single file along the edge of the sand dune, each accompanied by his black-clad captor. At the command from the largest of the captors, obviously the leader, the entire column stopped and faced the sun. Again the leader called out, and each of the 12 was roughly forced to his knees. At this point, the man stopped the playback and manipulated the computer's mouse to restart the video, the same thing he had done thousands of times before. He already knew what would happen next, the whole world did. Everyone had watched in horror as the video was played over and over by the news media, always accompanied by the talking heads of the major networks, giving graphic detail as they described the senseless beheading of these Christian men of faith. And, like everyone else, he at first was horrified when the news broke and reacted with revulsion at the brutality of it. But something about one of the captives caught his eye. It was on the screen for only a few seconds, but in that brief span, his life changed. His horror changed to disbelief, and then to helpless anguish. Anger came next, and then the hatred. And in the ensuing months, that hatred burned deep into his soul, becoming the seed that would spawn a plan brutal beyond words, his plan. As he hit play again, his focus was not on the line of bound men, nor was it on the black-clad men with knives drawn. No, it was on that one young man whose brief glance into the lens of the camera had caught his attention so many months ago. He was focused on what that young man was thinking and what he was feeling in the last moments of his life. He was focused on the pain and horror the young man must have felt as the blade sliced deeply into his neck. He was focused on his son.
I knew that. I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. It brings up images immediately of what we've all seen on TV, and it's intense. But your own child. I have a son that's a soldier. That's Special Forces.
Yeah.
So that hits real home for me, because that's a possibility for him. It's a possibility for anybody
Certainly.
today, actually.
Yeah.
Times have changed. It's
All you have to do is go to work.
Yeah, sad thing today on the news. Well, you're not writing fluff.
No.
You're writing serious, make a difference, make people think, and hopefully change lives. Not so much change lives, but inner reflective thought as to what we do with our lives. What led you, do you mind if I ask, to attack such a hard issue?
I think it's just, what's going on in the world today and the need to address it in some manner.
Because when we're not a soldier, they go out and they do something, and what do we do? I always say, I didn't earn my freedom. Other people earned it for me. I've never had to sacrifice the way my husband or son did or does. And this is for everybody worldwide.
It is. One of the things, typically, in a dedication, you acknowledge, recognize those that have helped you, and this sort of thing with the book. In this particular case for Wolf Trap, the dedication, and I'll paraphrase, is this book is dedicated to all those whose search for the truth is not impeded by their personal bias.
So true.
Because everybody tends to bring their personal bias, their own baggage into something, and sometimes that can obscure what the real truth is.
What the real truth is. Yeah, and there's people dying pretty often to get the truth out now. So we experience in all levels of society and, like I said, worldwide in many countries. Well, we have a minute left. I want to thank you so much for the prologue. Is gripping, quite frankly. My husband especially, too. He's retired Air Force.
As am I. Well, Air Force.
Are you Air Force? Yeah. Where were you stationed?
All over the world.
All over the world.
Spent my tour duty in Southeast Asia and in the United States as well.
Are you a Vietnam vet?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. I mean that with all my heart.
My father was also in the Air Corps and was actually a crew member on B-17s. Alternate gunner, was shot down, POW. And he just passed this last year.
In World War II?
Yeah. Sorry for the loss of your dad. It's almost break time. It's an awkward time, but thank you so much. Very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back in a little bit. Come back and hear some more. Please do.